Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today I want to do another synth sound from scratch. I want to make this a regular thing because you guys really like this series and it's very easy for me to produce. So what I want to do here is I want to make kind of like a preset. As you can see, we have an empty project. There's nothing in here. And if I open up Serum again, this is just an initialized patch. I'm thinking of doing another preset pack, but I really need to think about that wisely because obviously that takes a lot of time. But maybe I can use this series to once in a while make something for that and over time kind of build the startings of a pack. And you guys just kind of get to sound design along the way with me. For now though, what I want to do is I want to do kind of like a big sequence, something that you would use as a main lead. And I want to do all of the modulations within Serum itself, so with the LFOs. So obviously the very first thing that we would need to do is set up the volume for the sequence that we want to play. So let's experiment a little bit with that. Maybe we will start with something like an impact sound, something like a plug like this. Let's temporarily set this to 16 so that we can do 16 notes. And I'll make a sound that goes like this, where there's a plug here, and a plug here. Obviously, these go down and down. And we can do something interesting here with the plugs overall. We can maybe have this one open a little bit more and maybe have this a little bit higher so that we can slide in here. Oh, now I'm currently affecting all of them. Something like this actually. And then we have another plug in here. Let's also make this a big plug. And then finally, I'll make two plugs over here. Now I have to quickly interrupt to tell you that if you want to support the channel, you can do so by leaving a like and subscribing if you haven't. Also, you can check out my Gumroad page if you want to buy some of my products, or check out my Patreon if you want to support me financially. Now let's get back into the video. So the dynamics are there, it's just not a very interesting sound. I'm going to turn on oscillator B and we're going to randomize all of the harmonics in here, all of the phases for them. And then I'll also assign this to the volume here. And the cool thing that we can do is use a secondary LFO to determine which of these two oscillators are playing. So looking back, what I want to do is have this on as well. So you can see every other beat, there's going to be a part where this LFO is active. They're obviously a little bit different, but I'm taking this shape into account. In fact, this actually needs to move on one more so that it is actually at this closing point here. And now we can use this LFO like this and just invert one of them, which means now we get something like this. Still not very interesting. Let's add some detune to both of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's go with a little bit more on this, again, to differentiate them a little bit. And actually we'll set the random phase only on this one to 0. You can hear the kind of phasing effect that we're getting from that. Let's bring it out a little bit more by using a hyper set to retrigger mode. And we'll add some dimension while we're here. And then we'll add a strong distortion, something like a 0 square. Let's go for asymmetrical maybe. Now we can complement this with a little bit of extra movement, and what we can do is add a 4-bar LFO on a filter here. Let's go for something cool like a phaser. And I do want to mix it in a little bit so that it's not so extreme, but we get a shape that looks something like this. And then we just have this LFO kind of moving it up and down. Let's make the distortion a little bit stronger. So I've added the multiband compressor and we've basically set up our initial sound. Now all we have to do is make it interesting and assign all of the macros. While we're here, we'll also high pass this so that we don't get any lower frequencies. Let's actually turn this re-trigger off here. What I also want to do is set all of these to trigger. I think that that's a good idea so that we are sure that they all trigger at the same time when note is pressed. And what could be cool is to add a little bit of a pitch modulation to this first oscillator so that it acts a little bit more like a squelch. Something like this, and then we'll assign that unidirectionally like this. And again, set it to trigger. And this is something that you might want to control with a macro. So we'll use macro 2 for this, and this is pitching. For the first one, I always like to use this for some kind of main movement. What we can do is we can enable the sub, turn it up an octave for some FM setup for both of these. And we'll just FM from the sub oscillator on both and just assign a little bit of FM there and here. And this should give us a more digital sound, hopefully. And we can call this tonality. What I also like to do mainly with my sequences is all my ambient effects, have those on a macro as well. So I already set up the delay, but we're just going to set up the reverb. Maybe something like that. So we'll set the reverb to roughly there. And then our delay was a little bit higher. Maybe something like this. And now we have the ambience. And we would need a final macro to assign. What's also a good idea is to set up a pitch bend if your sequence needs it. And maybe we want to do something with the mod wheel as well. What could be cool for this final one is to introduce some of the gaps that are in here now. So we're basically just going to turn this down, and any time where we have an area where there is no volume in here, not given by this LFO here, we're just going to introduce that with one of the oscillators. So in order to set that up, I'm just using the macro number 3, and that is going to determine the amount that this LFO 5 here, which has this shape, is going in this case to our oscillator B. Might be cool to have a little bit of an overlap here. I keep messing up kind of the shape of everything. I think I want this to be like this. And then this down as well. And maybe even have something in here with a sweep. Or maybe let's just have it like this. So this just gives a little bit of extra tone to our sequence. So I've just quickly put together a kick and bass so that we can hear how it sounds like. I'm not sure if I'm a fan of the pitching effect here. I think I'm going to remove that. I do like having it in here like this, so we'll keep it like that. And overall, I would say we have a nice sound here. So hopefully that was easy to follow and you could kind of see my workflow here. This is how I usually go about making the kind of preset, but this doesn't mean that I do all of this stuff when I'm sound designing sounds that go in my normal tracks. Usually I don't bother with something like the macros for the sounds that I'm working on. especially if in the section I already know exactly what I want to do with the sound. Then usually I automate the parameters directly. So say that I want to change the filter cutoff, I'll just click the filter cutoff and automate that directly within the playlist here, instead of first assigning it to a macro and then automating the macro. But obviously for presets, it's much nicer to have some macros laid out here, which are clearly labeled and tell you exactly what they do. And one of the things that I like to do personally with my presets is kind of like standardize where all of these macros are. So for example, here I have tonality as the first macro. If any other presets in the same pack are going to have a tonality knob, you will find it as the first macro. The same is true for ambience, which you'll find on a lot of different sequences, which I like to make. When it comes to a preset pack, it's really handy to have an ambience control in here, with the ambience already set up in a way that makes sense for the sound, but also an easy way to turn off the ambience if you want to do your own, for example, with external effects. So that's going to be the video. I hope you enjoyed this little kind of sound design session for me. Let me know if you did by leaving a like, and if you're new here, make sure that you're subscribed. But that's going to be it. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.